So some other very important water properties that as engineers we need to be monitoring are conductivity, which gives us what the salinity of the water is, temperature, and depth. And both the conductivity, temperature, and to some degree also the depth will allow us to understand what the density of the water is, and that's critical when we're doing acoustic measurements like using ADCPs, because the sound from the sensor head is going to be traveling at whatever the speed of sound in water is, which is a function of the density. So oftentimes when we're running ADCPs that are mounted to the boat looking down and getting current profiles, like maybe we're getting a current profile across an inlet, we'll need to stop and get salinity and temperature readings, a vertical profile of those salinity and temperature readings, so then we can post-process the ADCP data and correct for speed of sound. Software packages now on ADCP data are actually ready to read in your current, your conductivity and temperature profiles, and they'll actually automatically adjust for speed of sound on the fly. So one instrument we can use for that is the Castaway CTD. Costs about $5,000 to $7,000 depending on how you get it and what accessories you get with it. But it just looks like a little or a really big pill. That's to be a really tough one for us to swallow. And it's all enclosed. It's a wireless operation, and it saves the data internally, and then you come back and there's another little dongle that you plug into the computer, and via Bluetooth it transmits its data wirelessly to your computer that you can then process. You need extra batteries. These guys are tricky. You have to open it up, and pull it out of its little container here, little sleeve, which is never easy, which is good because again these are one of those things you don't want to lose. And you take the base off. And replace the batteries there. This one I'll probably need to come back and re-lubricate the O-ring. It was a little trickier to get off than it should have been. And then we want to kind of line it back up. Let's see. And twist it back on. Okay. So this whole unit gets thrown into the water. Of course, clearly you don't just want to chunk it into the water because you have to be able to retrieve it, so that's why we have this nice sleeve. What you'll do is you clip a weight onto the bottom side of this, and you clip the top side to some line, and I've sometimes seen this has inboard GPS. So first thing you do is with the magnetic stylus you turn it on. I bet the batteries are dead. Alright, so we have the unit here. Again, you'll attach a weight to the bottom. It just helps it sink more efficiently. And then, of course, you'll need it to be attached to some line that you can retrieve it from as you pull it back slowly up to the surface. You turn it on with a magnetic stylus, and it powers up. And then you can scroll through the different options. Again, it's Bluetooth capable. It's got the GPS. Unfortunately, being inside, we're not going to be able to get a GPS connection. But basically what you do is you can scroll through the different, that big I of course tells you about the Castaway, what the firmware version is. So you can always check for upgrades on firmware. And yeah, we can't set the system time because we're not hooked up to GPS. This first highlighted image, which looks like the Castaway, is again the Castaway. Of course, we're not set up because we don't have GPS. So we really need to get this thing.
Should we go outside?
Yeah, we should go outside. Record. Okay, so now we're outside. The satellites have connected. We've got the date and time set. We can we scroll through till we're on the Castaway looking icon. We hit this other, and it says start cast. So we set our location, and yeah, I think we just do that. And then you want to wait for the latitude and longitude to show up. So we'll kind of step away from the building for a second.
Further away from the building?
Can't see anything. Okay. Let's try this again. Go back to the machine. Okay. You can see that. So we start here on the Castaway icon. We hit the go button. It's going to take a latitude and longitude reading for the start of the cast. If you have good GPS, you can wait for that to happen. Once the reading comes up and you're ready to go, you push this the stylus into this hole again, and it starts the cast. And basically at this point now, you would throw this thing into the water, attach it to the line, it would drop to the bottom, and come back up again. And then when you pull it out of the water, you're done recording. You hit this X button, and it gets its end cast location. So what happens is, clearly if you're out on the water, you could be drifting. So it starts cast and end cast location may be slightly different. So it'll record that where it comes out, and then you hit the X button again, and then you have your deployment records here. Clearly we didn't deploy it, so there's a lot of red on the screen, but we'll go back up to the lab and we'll go through some of previous deployments on here. And then when you're ready for your next deployment, you just hit the off button again, and it brings you back to the main screen. Go to the next location, do it again, hit it once, get the location for the start of the cast, hit it again, throw it in the water, bring it back up, stop recording, set the end location, and you're done, and then on to the next one. Okay. So then, had we actually been deploying this in the water? You can go to the files. We'll go look at some pre-existing files. This was this was what we just did outside. Invalid too shallow, right? We didn't even go in the water. We can go to the. Okay, so the next one. We also did that one. Invalid too shallow. So here's an actual deployment. It tells you the latitude and longitude, date and time. and the depth. So this was a very shallow 1.35 meters. And then you can scroll through and see here's the temperature profile and the depth, again, going from the surface to the bottom. It gets a little bit cooler. Of course, we're only going 1.4 meters down, so not much. We have a salinity profile, so a little, well, I'm sorry, this is the conductivity profile. And this is a salinity profile. And then this is a, supposed to be the speed depending on your start and an approximate velocity depending on your start and ending location. And then it goes back to the front screen, and then you can go to the next one, and you can kind of go back and look at your data right here on the instrument. See if we get one that's a little deeper, 2 meters to...
How deep does it go?
This, I think you can go down easily to 30 meters plus. You just, of course, don't want to lose it, so make sure you have enough line.
So we should bring this along next MFP.
Yes, yeah. There's one 6 meters, so here's one that's 6.5 meters, and you can go through and you see the temperature again decrease from surface to the bottom. Again, the conductivity increases as you go from fresh water near the surface to the saltier water near the bottom. And then the salinity units, again, salinity profile here, not too pronounced, fairly well mixed, and we weren't moving that much. Okay, put the dongle into a laptop, offload the data onto that. So we can open up the Castaway software. And I've actually uploaded some of the data that we've been collecting out in the lagoon. And so you can see we've got 48 data records saved on this computer. And what we want to do is kind of zoom in. Well, these are all taken in locations up in, well, here's one taken all the way up in Maine, huh? Where are the ones from Florida? Maybe they're on a different computer. Oh, there's 3 there. So the nice thing about their proprietary software that comes with it is it loads up your samples, and you can see via a map where your samples are. If you have samples clustered in one area, when you highlight it, so here there's a 2, we have 2 samples here, and in the window off to the side you can see both the temperature and conductivity from both of those samples. I'll make the screen a bit bigger. And so those profiles show up pretty well there. So you can, if you've grouped samples in a specific location, you can then kind of highlight them and bring them up in the window. We can again zoom in a bit if we wanted, and say, okay, we took 10 samples over here while we were trying to find a location to deploy an ADCP just off in the Banana River near the barge canal. And you can look at each of those individual recordings here. It's got the maximum values of conductivity and minimum, maximum temperature and minimum, and pressure maximum. And then of course we can plot them very quickly on the side screen here. If you're not versed in conductivity, which I'm not, I would just pick salinity and partial salinity units, And for the most part, in these locations, as you would expect in a shallow estuary, it's fairly well mixed as far as salinity goes. But you know, we only have 5 of the 10 plotted. You can always highlight more or less, depending on what you're trying to see here. So it's a nice little interface for giving you kind of an idea of what the data is doing out there. But clearly, if you want to do any real data analysis, then you've got to save these files off and process them yourself. These files are again set up to where you can read them in to the ADCP data for speed of sound corrections and to help make that data even more accurate as well.